Are you doing this work to facilitate growth or to become famous? Which is more important, getting or letting go?
Alright, so what I'm about to talk about is something I think is very valuable as a practice and as an exercise, just on a human level and on a spiritual level. So we deal with a lot of shit on a day-to-day basis, right? And when I say we deal with a lot of things, what I mean is we deal with a lot of outside influences. And we deal with a lot of insecurities. We deal with a lot of our doubts. So a lot of times we feel different ways about ourselves. A lot of times we feel that we on top of the world. A lot of times we feel like we are the smallest person in the room, or that our opinion doesn't matter, or that we are not talented, or we don't fit in and shit like that, right? And when we find ourselves in those places, we got to understand that we're in a place of lack. So at some point you want to make sure, you find your way out of that space, because that's a perception. It's an idea of you. It's not you. So when we speak about outside forces, we speak about, a lot of times the people we love, the billboards, the person on Instagram that got all the followers that you wish you was like, or whatever we deal with in this matrix, so to speak. It's always something that's kind of trying to influence you to feel like you need to be more or something, or even sometimes feel like you need to be less of who you are and shit like that. Also, we deal with a lot of trauma within ourselves. We deal with a lot of shit that's our blind spots that we don't really have a grasp on. But if we look at the symptoms of our reactions to shit, of how we act, of our perceptions of people, our perceptions of ourselves, if we dig a little bit deeper into that, we can see that it's a distortion there. And I'm starting to realize that no matter what facet we look at, this distortion is all based on lack, not having enough, not being enough, or not being where you want to be, feeling like you should have got a house 10 years ago, or you should have got the car, or you should have got the girl, or you should have got the job, or you should just be ahead in life. Feeling like that, right? What if we just play pretend again, right? What if we just pretend like we did when we was kids? Because I come from the trenches, I come from the hood, so a lot of things I had to imagine in my life just to get to the spaces I'm in now, within myself first and in my day-to-day life. For me to get there, I had to pretend. I had to imagine. I had to imagine myself as more. I had to imagine myself as better. I had to imagine myself in a more ideal situation, being more helpful, being actually arriving in a moment, and for the most part, and most importantly, being fulfilled. What does that seem like? What does that feel like? What is that to you? This is a question you got to ask yourself. So I would say let's play pretend for a second. And even if you could just try this out for an hour, pretend that you at where you're supposed to be at. Pretend that you, with all your flaws, all your secrets, all your grief, all your shortcomings and shit like that, all the things that you might not even know about yourself that you're totally blind to. Let's pretend that all of that is perfectly fine, right? Let's pretend there's nothing for us to do. Let's pretend that, it's nowhere to be. Let's just pretend that everything's all right for a while and move from that space. And what you're going to find is that you start to just become more and more energized, more and more empowered. You shed the ego for a while and stop looking at yourself as one aspect. Because let's be real, we could all get caught up in one aspect of ourselves for hours out of the day, or an entire day, or months, or years, seeing ourselves as less than, even stepping down to the low level of comparing ourselves to others. This is the world we live in, though. This is how people are engineered. This is what socializing and socialism is all about. Being socially engineered to perceive yourself and others through certain archetypes. You should be this size. You shouldn't say that. Shit like morality. You should be a good person. And you should, so we judge ourselves harshly through those perceptions, through those glasses. It's like picking up some glasses and only seeing one aspect of yourself, one aspect of life. And it don't help that we got, a lot of music and influences like TV shows and movies that always depict these archetypes. You watch movies and shit and you'll see it's always the kid at the school that eats alone. That's getting victimized. It's always the so-called cool kids, the athletes. Or it's always the CEO or the founder of a Fortune 544, however you say the shit. He's on the Forbes list, or he's a multi-billionaire mogul, that type of thing. And then it's the guy that pushes the cart and is homeless. It's all these archetypes, and they all have one thing in common: they're all based on lack. Even when you talk about the mogul. When you think about something that having a lot, you can't think about having a lot without think about not having shit. It's all one and the same. It's like giving and receiving. It's all one and the same. And I'm not really going to expound on that, but it's all one and the same, because when I'm gonna just say this: when you give, you make room for more. You make space. You might give somebody $1 out your wallet. That's one bill, and make space for $100 bill, and not without even knowing it, but because of your intentions and your gesture and your where you coming from and giving, and not coming from a place of lack. It makes room for more. So you get more by giving. I feel like I'm making sense right now. I really do. But yeah, I found that all of these things are just a play. The root of all of these feelings and perceptions and archetypes are lack. So you have to buy this kind of car. You got to live in this type of space. You have to feel like this because what you don't have. It's never based on what you do have. Now, if we pretend that we have everything we need, like how a baby do. When it's a baby come out, baby don't want or need for anything. I mean, it needs food, and I spoke about this on another podcast. A baby need food, a baby need clothes, and a baby need to be changed and stuff like that, but it doesn't have all of these extra perceived wants, needs, lack, and things like that come from outside influences. That's what we got to pay attention to, the outside influence, because the outside influence could become the voice of our inner voice. So instead of us thinking about how we feel, we thinking about how everybody else feel about us. Instead of us thinking about what we think about ourselves, we thinking about what everybody else think about us, how everybody else perceive us. So we took all our power from the inside and gave it away, and now we feel powerless. And when you feel powerless, guess what? You're relieving yourself of your duty. It's like not coming into work and not even calling out. You just ain't show up. You're giving away your responsibilities. You're giving away your accountability, and ultimately you're giving away your sovereignty. Feeling like it's happening to you and not happening for you. Feeling like it's a mistake and shit like that. And this is the ultimate realization that everybody is striving for with all of the reading, dating, accumulating certain knowledge and shit like that. You really just looking for a space of fulfillment. And the fact that you're looking for it, you can't have it. Because it's already there. It already is. It already exists. You're a part of it. It is you. It's the end all be all. It's one and the same. No, they say it in the Bible, it's the Father and the Son, but it's one, you know what I'm saying? It's one and the same, and that's the trick. It's like you out here looking for yourself, and you can't find yourself because you. And the hardest thing for us to do as humans and as people is be. We be like, yeah, I'm a human being, but we never just be. So I feel like we all on a journey that we run across middlemen, the book, the person of interest that you claim to love so much, the job, the knowledge or whatever filter you hide behind. I'm the preacher, I'm the teacher, whatever title, whatever label you allow yourself to be contained in, is just a middleman. It's not the thing, it's not the experience. But what we really yearn for on a core level, on a deep level, is just to experience shit again like how we did when we was kids. Like when you first see a balloon and shit, you be amazed, don't know what it is, like you so open. We be wanting to get back to that open place, but so many perceptions have been thrown our way, so many advertisements, so many influences, so much trauma and shit like that, to the point we don't trust no more, so we feel like, yo, this shit is fucked up. It's happening to me. It happened once, it could be happening any second. I'm going to guard myself and make sure that it never happens again. So now we walk around with these phobias, we walk around with these fears, these insecurities, these doubts that really are very silly when you speak on them. And I used to be a person that felt like, oh, it's not, I would listen, I still to this day, I listen to a lot of people talk. I give people pointers and shit like that. But I never wanted to be that person that share and speak on what I'm really going through. I always feel like, yo, that's something that a person needs to be able to handle on their own. But now I'm starting to realize sometimes you need to say the silly insecurities that we have, the silly shit that be holding us back from being more full versions of ourselves. You need to just start saying that shit, speaking on it. So it become normal, so it become silly. So that you can see how silly it really is to allow something small to hold you back, to become this small perception of yourself, this small version of yourself that you perceiving yourself as, and moving from that small space when really you're limitless. You feel me? What do I mean when I say you're limitless? You have the potential to choose, make decisions, to change your life, to change your trajectory of where you're going just by your imagination and what you energize, what you allow yourself to believe in. You feel me? So that's where I feel like we all are equal at. So, even speaking to somebody that might only see themselves as just that one small aspect of themselves, it's my duty to show them multifacets of myself as just an example, just to be just by being me. To show another person, oh shit, nah, you could just be you, flaws and all, and it could be all right. Trust me, it's people that have a certain perception of me, period. Oh, you don't know what you talk about. Oh, you used to be like this. You used to do that. Fuck you. And then it's other people that would tell you I'm the greatest person in the world, that I'm the most polite person, I'm the most thoughtful person, I'm the most loving person. Because first of all, everybody's perception is of them. They're of their own perception. So a lot of times people just be projecting how they feel about themselves onto you. You got to be okay with that though. Sometimes people might be spot on about you and see things about you that you can't see about yourself. You got to be okay with that too. You got to be okay and have a trust that when it's time for you to realize that shit, you'll realize it. When it's time for you to take the advice, you'll take it. But if we get caught up in trying to conform to someone else's perception of us, or even let it creep in and be our inner voice, we it's like we cut ourselves off from a lot of potentials, from us being limitless, from all the limitless possibilities that we actually have. We make ourselves small and limited, and only look at this one aspect and energize it, and as this aspect of us becomes so big, as we magnify it, we begin to feel small. We begin to feel lack, and then we start to act from there. We start to react from there. We start to move from there. We start to perceive shit that's not even there. You got out of one relationship, this person treated you so bad, abused you, you ain't really healed up and things like that. And now you go into the next relationship and you got your guard up like Muhammad Ali, trying to make sure it never happens again. Which is imbalanced and unhealthy to the other person, which didn't even abuse you or do nothing, but you're stuck in that perception because you allowed yourself to be contained and become small and become one aspect of yourself and perceive yourself from there. I mean, let me stop reiterating the same shit, but I be wanting to make my point sometimes. Not just for the listener, neither. A lot of times, this right here be a practice in therapy for me, the speaker, because I forget every day. Sometimes I fall short. Like, damn, I could look at myself as such a small being, and then sometimes it takes somebody around me that love me to remind me of how much I mean to them. But they look for me. They might be looking to me as their strength at the time, and I'll be looking at myself as like I'm weak, and I'm like, damn, how could I be weak if people drawing strength from me? Sometimes you have to be reminded. That's another reason why we got to be careful with our perceptions on ourselves, because then we'll wind up hanging with the wrong people that's not going to remind you of your strengths. They're not going to remind you of your greatness. They're not going to remind you that you should already feel fulfilled. You know, everything is in construction, under construction. You feel me? And it's a day-to-day fight too. It's a day-to-day fight. And it's nothing wrong with traveling in those dimensions and traveling inside of those spaces of yourself of feeling small. A lot of times being in those spaces and experiencing those spaces give you a lot of insight on why you even dwell there. Why you even like to go to that club. Why you like to hang out right there. You know what I mean? And the reason why I say we have to be careful, because it's like home. When we be somewhere that we comfortable at for so long, we like to be there. We like to hang out there. That's where we kick back at. So when something happens that challenges you, when you facing something that's unknown, because that's what your ego really scared of, something new, something unknown that it can't grasp and control, you know? When you in those spaces, pay attention to where you run to. Do you run through the threshold and go through the challenge? Do you go through the experience and just experience it? Or do you have to step into it and control it? Do you run into a victimhood, or feeling like shit is not fair, or feeling like, shit is stacked up against you and it's overbearing and it's too much of a burden? You gotta allow yourself to observe your own tendencies instead of judging them and calling them right, calling them wrong, calling them evil, calling them deficient. Because that's a perception. That's a perspective that we see every day. That's outside influences telling you, oh, yo, if you think like this, then you're fucked up. If you have a certain moral compass that's like this, and you act like this, and you conduct yourself like this, then you're okay. They got a lot of labels and a whole bunch of diagnoses floating around out here, but it's not a lot of cures. So for those of us that are coming into a certain level of awareness, it's important that we have a objective point of view on ourselves and the world around us. And how do you gain that perspective? By, like I said, just pretend everything is all right for a second. Allow yourself to sit in that space. Allow yourself to be all right where you are. Right in the challenge, right in the turmoil, right in the confusion. And I promise you, the shit just going to dissipate. It'll start to dissolve. And where does it go? It go right back where it came from, into you. You start to feel energized. You start to feel like you could do what you said you was going to do. You start to feel like it ain't all that bad. You feel me? And this be the real fight, no matter what you do for work, no matter what relationship you in. This just some soul shit. Sometimes we get so caught up in, like I said, the outside influence that we could forget where our real home is at. We could forget that everything all right. We really could. The thing is, when we act from there, we create different timelines. We create different scenarios that wouldn't necessarily be there to hinder us or stop us or block us if we wasn't already being that block for ourselves by having that perception. That's like the best way I could really say it. And this is the realization, like I said, that we just need to have all over and over again. Over and over again. Every time we forget, we need to just come back to the realization that everything all right, everything okay. Look back at your life now. Look at all the shit that you thought was the end of the world, and then you still here. You got through it. It made you better. You thought it was a something that was happening to you, and you realized it was something that was happening for you. It began to, as time went on, it began to become a blessing and a lesson. You start looking back at your life and seeing like, yo, this shit kind of all makes sense. And that should be where you could draw your trust from. Knowing that at some point, at some time, it's always making sense. It's going to always make sense because it's all right. It's okay. And like I said, even if you got to pretend, that's the best thing you could do. Pretend. Everybody do it anyway. You do it at work. A lot of y'all do it in the bedroom. You feel me? We doing it on Instagram. We doing it on YouTube. Everybody capping. Everybody clout chasing. So you could just pretend a little bit more. Pretend shit is okay. And be present with that, and then like feel how that feel. And this me coming off like actually doing it, you know? Me speaking about it is just being able to bring myself back to that place like, yo, I've been through some shit. I had good times. I had bad times. A lot of bad times turned out to be really the good times. So it makes me understand, yo, my perspective at the time might have been distorted. I might not have had the maturity or the right view on it. Let me look at it with a different perspective. And now I could draw more wisdom from it, more knowledge. Now I could be more integrated, more grounded. When it all comes from the imagination first. Imagination is everything. We imagine shit that ain't there. We running from something and it ain't even there. We already made our mind up. Oh, this is going to happen. This person ain't going to like me. I'm not going to get the job. I don't deserve this. We got to sit back and listen to our soundtrack. We gotta listen to the world within us that's going on, our speech, how we talk to ourselves. Not that corny affirmation shit. I ain't saying it don't work, but we gotta create our own affirmations that's comfortable to us. We gotta be able to face shit like, oh, I really feel doubtful right now, but I'm still about to walk through this experience with the doubt with me and watch the doubt dissolve. Because once you engage with something totally, all perception dissolves anyway. But when you carry in these archetypes, you carry in these perspectives and these perceptions into something, you can't even see the thing. You can't even see the person. You can't even experience the experience because you got your mind made up already. But at the same time, that lets you know how powerful you are. That lets you know how powerful your imagination is. That you could imagine something to be something that is really not. Or you could imagine something and bring it into existence. It could be a tool of building or it could be a tool of destruction. It's all up to you.